Hello, everyone. It's Saturday. It's Chat with Mac. We're glad that you're joining us. For those of you that continuously look at our little show here, we really appreciate, especially the input, the questions. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And for those of you that are new to what we do, welcome, welcome, welcome. How's it going today? Happy Saturday, Nadeem.
Yeah, going great. How's your Saturday?
Hectic, really, really crazy. But I'm on the tail end of it, so I'm happy. Hey,
Great.
tell me, Friday, right? You and I we were on the phone. It was early morning, and I can tell you were a little bit exasperated, and you were telling me that you were restoring your phone. And you know me, I'm an Android guy, so anytime someone with an Apple has a problem, makes me giggle. What happened with that?
Okay, so here's what the whole thing how it started. So I use Microsoft's MDM, Intune, and I was testing a group setting where I would only allow people who are in that group. I would only allow their devices to connect if they were onboarded into Microsoft's MDM platform. Basically, if they had the Intune portal app on their device. Right. So if you don't have the Intune portal app, if it cannot authenticate, your device is not allowed to connect. So here's what's weird that happened. So of course I have, iPhone, iPad, watch, whatever, bunch of devices. All my devices were fine except my iPhone, which is the most important device. It's always with me. I go wherever, it goes with me. That's the only device that I always have on me. So Friday morning, my iPhone started complaining it cannot get mail and then I looked down there, my Intune portal app was timing out trying to get the configuration of the device. So basically what that the Intune portal app does is it looks at the device configuration, whether you have encryption turned on, you are using a password for initial, startup. So it's looking for certain security measures that are enabled on your device. And that process for it looking for those things, if they're enabled or not, was timing out. So if that times out, that means you cannot talk to Microsoft's MDM platform, which means Microsoft's MDM platform are not going to give you access, which is why my email wasn't working on my phone. Now, my iPad has the same portal. It was working fine. My iPhone wasn't. So I knew it was a problem with the MDM portion of it. And thinking about it, I knew the reason why it possibly was still working on my iPad is my iPad is on the latest iPad OS, which is 15.7, I believe. My iPhone is the latest iOS, which is 16.03. So it's a whole rev difference because version 16 hasn't been released for iPad yet. That's going to come later this month. So I kind of figured that there's something weird going on just maybe with the iOS version. Now I know going from 16.01 to 16.03 somewhere like after I upgraded to 16, it was working. Something happened between 16.01 and 16.03, somewhere in there. So the problem is I forgot that I had configured a group and I was testing with myself, and only I was the member of that group where security measures are required before you're allowed access. None of the other guys are in that group. I had just forgot about it. So having forgot about that part, I was like, okay, well, my Intune is giving me problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase my device. I'm like, I don't have time to deal with it. Let me just erase my device. I'll get on. Everything will be good. Great. It didn't work that way because since I was part of that group, so the Intune portion of it works well. If for any reason Intune is not able to make sure your device complies with policy requirements, it's not going to let you in. So it was doing what it's supposed to do. I had forgot that I had put that restriction on myself. So it doesn't matter if I had restarted and reset my phone 50 million times or even got a new phone, it would not have worked no matter what. But I had forgot about that portion. So I reset my device, blew up all my settings. And of course, we have multi-factor authentication. We have multi-factor in so many different things. So I had to reconfigure all of those. It was a pain. And then And then in the reset process, I also figured out another thing. So you can enable backups in iCloud. Now, normally I would plug my phone into my computer and back it up over there, but I was in a hurry. I was in a rush. So I was like, I don't have time for this. Let me just reset it to factory defaults, start from scratch. Everything will be good. Well, when I reset to factory defaults, as soon as I joined my iCloud, the setting to back up the device to iCloud was enabled. By default, it is enabled. So as soon as I joined iCloud, it backed up my newly reset device to iCloud. And iCloud only keeps one backup. And I was like, what the hell? It's like, and I went in there after the fact. I went in there to look, hey, can I set multiple like historic backups in iCloud? It does not allow you to do that. You can only have one backup. And I see the idea. The idea is that if you're going from one device to a new device, you just need the latest backup. And if you use their wizard to go, to upgrade your device, everything is fine. So it was designed for that purpose. But under normal circumstances, I would have made a backup on my computer and then reset it and then done that, and everything would have been fine. Well, in this case, so that was one disaster that happened where I had to reset my device and then reconfigure all my apps. But when I went to configure my email account, it still wouldn't let me in because of my MDM policy that I had forgot about. So now I'm looking at the Exchange ID. So even though I have reset my device, each device has its own Exchange ID. And I was looking at that Exchange ID down there, and it seemed to be the same as my previous Exchange ID. So I was like, well, maybe if I reset my Exchange ID somehow, I can get access. And then I was like, wait a minute, step back. This shouldn't be this complicated. What the hell am I doing? So that's when I started digging into our Azure portal where my account exists, and I noticed a group in there, and it was a weird group called, something test security something. But what I found was only I was the member of that group. And then I remembered I had set that group when I was testing Microsoft MDM product onboarding and all that, and I had added myself to that group so I can, I was testing basically policy enforcement on myself, and one of the policies was that your device has to meet certain criteria before it's allowed in. And that was the light that went off in my head, and I was like, oh crap. So I deleted myself from that group. I deleted that group altogether. Boom, got right in. I was like, oh man, I reset my device for nothing.
So let me ask you this though. Androids. I don't think this would be an issue. I could be wrong. I am partial, so don't quote me on this. But it's just, that wouldn't be an issue with Android, the Android platform.
This issue was not really iOS or Android specific. This issue was MDM specific. So,
that's correct.
So had I been using an Android device, I would have run into the same problem if I had forgotten that I was enforcing policy on my account. That's what the problem was. So this problem would have persisted no matter which way I went, no matter what device I used. Now, if I had implemented the same policies on a Windows device, I would have had the same problem on a Windows device, right? Now, but this then got me thinking. So one thing is iCloud backups. Do not rely on them because you cannot go back in time. If you reset your device and after resetting you log into iCloud, and if you wait long enough, the device does a full backup to iCloud. If that happens, the only restore you can do is that previous restore, which is the new device, not the old stuff. But silver lining, the good thing that came out of this was after I reset my device from scratch and reconfigured everything from scratch, I found out a lot of the new features that came in after I had originally got my device, by default, they were disabled on my device. So all of a sudden, all these new features were now enabled. So the way the upgrades work in iOS is if your device has a certain feature at the time of release, that feature is enabled. Let's say it's enabled by default. When in a later version of iOS, a new feature comes out, if when your device was released, that feature was not available, it will stay disabled. So the new feature will stay disabled because they want to keep the change as low as possible. So certain things that would be on a new iPhone, they wouldn't show up on an older iPhone that was upgraded because your config is back from that time, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
in a way, you end up missing a lot of the features. So my iPhone, after I did a full reset, I saw, some new things that I wouldn't see normally, like, on the lock screen where the time kind of goes behind the wallpaper a little bit. It gives it that 3D perspective. Those kind of little things that kind of I wasn't aware of. Of course, the automatic night and day switching and all that, which I used to keep it always on dark mode, and the automatic switching kind of switched it, and I had forgotten about that. But those are some of the things, like once you configure your device, and then as you upgrade through different generations, all your settings go with you. The new settings are not enabled by default. You have to know where to go and enable them. So that was one good thing that came out of this, is now, since it's a new device, I have everything that's new. Now, one of the other things that I kind of noticed that I would pay special attention to going forward is making sure and backing up your second factor authentication apps. It's a painful thing to be able to reset all your second factor. And I found one app I was using at a service that I don't use much. I had to set that second factor for it today. Fortunately, I had backup keys for that, and so it was very easy. It was Citrix, but it was very easy. I just used one of the backup keys. I got in, I reset my MFA again, and I made sure and enabled backup to iCloud option in my second factor authentication app, just so if something happens, so it not only is it backup as part of the iPhone backup itself, it is backed up into iCloud. So even if the iPhone backup is overwritten, the backup for the second factor authentication app is not overwritten. It's kept in a separate place in iCloud. So now I can always go back and restore that. So now my focus is going to be to have most of my second factor in this app that gets backed up to iCloud. Now, the other thing that comes into play, this is where Android and iPhone start to diverge. You may have heard Apple talking about how most of their analytics is done on the device itself. It is not done anywhere else. So all that information is done within the device. It stays within the device. And that, I kind of proved it. That is very true. I'll give you an example. So every morning, I'm a creature of habit, right? So every morning I wake up, I do my thing, and at a certain specific time, and it's pretty much within a couple of seconds, I get on the scale at the same time, weighing scale, right? I weigh myself. And I use an app that picks up my weight from the weighing scale at a specific time. Now, the iPhone remembers what time I weigh myself. So in the morning, every morning around that time, it will offer me that if I need to run that weigh scale app, because I do it every morning. Well, since all that analytic information is within the device itself, resetting it, it forgot those things, right? So now it wouldn't say, hey, maybe you like to do this now. It forgot about that. Or if I get in the car, hey, where would you like to go? It forgot about that. And so all these little things that it had to remember, and you lose track of how much your phone kind of nudges you during the day. When it stops nudging you, it's like, man, I can't believe I missed that. How come I missed that? And it's because your phone lost all those settings and it didn't nudge you in the right direction, right? So, and of course, your phone tied to your watch, normally some of these nudges come via haptics on your watch. So you don't have to think about it. You get that haptic, it's around a certain time, you know what you need to do, those kind of things were lost. Like, my list of medications, when I take my medications, a lot of like my sleep pattern. And then another thing was headphone noise level. So it had forgotten around what level I listened, to my phone. So now it started saying, hey, your volume might be too loud because last 7 days you haven't had this volume at all, because in the iPhone's memory, I haven't had last 7 days. I have zero volume for last 7 days because it's reset to default, reset clear. So it's thinking, hey, you're going from zero volume to all of a sudden, 30, 40, whatever the volume is. And it's nudging me saying, hey, your volume might be too loud because we're not seeing this in the last 7 days. So I was like, oh, crap, man, this is more painful than anything. So that's the difference between iPhone and Android devices. So iPhone, all that data stays on your device. So if you reset your device, all that learned behavior that the iPhone has goes away. Android in that perspective is better because all that data actually sits in the Google Cloud. So it doesn't matter what device you're on, that data is in the Google. So and that's a pro and con, right? On either side. Apple says, hey, we keep it on their device so it's secure, it never leaves your device, blah, blah, blah. We can't sell it. And Google says, no, we do a lot more analytics, so we're going to keep it in the cloud. And, that way we don't care what your device is. We still have your data. We still know who you are. We still know what you're going to do next. So those are some of the areas where the two platforms differ. But it was a big thing. I mean, I haven't reset my phone for, I don't even remember, maybe 10 years, because every time I get a new phone, I just upgrade and all my settings, data, everything kind of flows onto the new phone. So this, I haven't restarted it, reset it in a very long time. So it was kind of different. And of course, once you reset it, you have to pair it with your watch again. You have to pair it with any of your AirTags again. You have to pair it with your car again. You have to do all of that. and then of course it forgets. So, when you get in the car, it doesn't know what you want to do. Like normally I get in the car, it would know I want to play certain music. I want to do certain things. It would be fine. But now it's got to learn all that again. So in a way, I'm okay with it because it was a good exercise in starting all that from scratch. Like, how painful really is it to, the human mind makes an unknown a big scary thing when a lot of times it's not that big and it's not that scary. I think so that Friday I had to leave the house. I was resetting my phone. I think 20, 30 minutes max, I was able to leave the house. I got most of my important stuff on there. I got my email. I got my accounts connected. Some of the other stuff that I'll find as I go on, it's no big deal. If a certain app is missing, I'll just install it at that time. No big deal. So that's what I was grappling with on Friday. And I had to be somewhere, I was, and it was like, why on the worst day would it do this? It all stemmed from Microsoft's Intune having a problem assessing my phone's configuration, which the phone configuration had not changed. It was just some other issue where it was having a problem getting the configuration from the phone. So it was timing out, so it couldn't authenticate. And if it couldn't authenticate, it wasn't going to be allowed on the system. So from the security side of Intune works very well. Would I use it again, and would I enforce that policy on myself again? I probably would not, because then you are reliant on another technology that if anything fails in it, like let's say you lose internet or you lose something, and or something happens and your device just cannot go through that config or that initial profile analysis, the email system is not going to let you in. There is no way around that. So that was a problem. So I don't think I'm going to put myself and enforce that policy on myself again. But it's good to know. For enterprise, it's a great thing to have, right? So, in the process, I learned how well, so if a device is enforced through Intune and onboarded through Intune, you can tell Intune from the server side, through the Microsoft portal, you can tell it to erase all settings on that device. The good thing is when it erases that, it erases only the company-owned data. So your pictures, all that other stuff stays on the device. It doesn't touch that. It only touches corporate data. So that's a good thing to know, because even if somebody brings in their own personal iPhone and you onboard it into the company Intune portal, when that user leaves and you remove that data, it only removes the company data, not the personal data on that device.
I did not know that. Really?
Yeah. That's pretty neat. So yeah, that's what I was.
Wipe.
Huh?
It wouldn't be a full-on wipe. It actually knows, like, hey,
Yeah. So the Intune portal, the app is actually what erases data from the device, and it knows like what you've configured, like your email, your OneDrive, your SharePoint, your Teams, things that are company related to that account. It will only remove those things and that data and leave everything else untouched. So that's pretty neat. Yeah.
I did not know that. Wow.
So yeah, I went through an exercise, and of course, Monday I was going to leave town, and here we are. Friday I had this big issue, and later on Friday, I had a few meetings I needed to be, and I was like, man, this is the worst day to do this.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's the funny thing about this whole thing that Nadeem is talking about is, and we were having a little bit of a chuckle about this. I've been with the company going on almost 5 years, and now I can almost tell when Nadeem is exasperated. And you could just tell Nadeem was just like, oh my God, today was just one of those days. And usually, and I'm just saying, usually Nadeem was a little unflappable. I mean, he'll have some things go on. He'd be like, oh, well, it is what it is. That day, it just seemed like Nadeem was just like, good Lord, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fairly easygoing, but that was now, the thought did occur to me, and the thought was, what if I just chunk this iPhone and just go as I am? And I was like, and I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, I could do that. I mean, I don't have to have my phone with you. It's just we get attached to these things, right? Like, I want to be able to see what my schedule is. But I'm sure people will remind me. If I'm late to a meeting, I'm sure people will figure out a way to get in touch with me and tell me, hey, you're late.
Sometimes. I mean, it's amazing, and it kind of goes back to something that we've talked about almost about a year, maybe 2 years ago. As you were talking, the AI component of all of this just came into like full blown view. It's just like your phone knows your routine. Your phone knows just everything. And I know we talked about how AI was going to be front and center in the next couple of years. And when you were talking, I'm like, hell, it's doing it now. I mean, it's like, yeah. I mean, even funny. My phone knows when you and I do our, thing first thing in the morning. It knows like, hey, you usually wake up at this time. You want me to set your alarm? And I noticed that like a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, well, hell, I mean, just that's crazy that it knows. So yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of little things that we take for granted just because they come to us in slowly over time, and we're like that frog boiling in water. We never realize it.
Talk about that.
It's like my phone. Like if I do a meeting from a certain location, when that meeting is coming up, it will say, hey, you need to head out and be at that location because your meeting is coming up. And it's like, so we don't even think about it now, right? Our phone just nudges us and we do it. And it's when you don't have your phone and then you kind of feel lost. Is like, well, I don't know what's next. Fortunately, I had my watch, which has my schedule, but without these devices, we'd be lost. We just rely so much on that, and I think it's a good thing because it's a good thing in a way that now our minds can do things that only a human mind can do.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't have to just memorize things and remember things because the human mind has to think, and these devices, they're good for memory, but they cannot think. Yeah. And that's what, the human mind is good at. So let's use more of that potential and leave the thinking, remembering those kind of little things to electronics and other devices, which they do a great job of anyway, right? Of course, if you become 100% reliant on them and something happens, then you're out of luck. But I mean, in this day and age, I think it's real hard to for one device to fail and we be lost because we have so many. Like you have the watches, you have the phones, you have the iPads, you have the computer. I mean, you have devices everywhere. Anywhere that I go, I can log in from anywhere into my calendar and look at my calendar. If all else fails, I can always log in from anybody's device and check my calendar.
And check my calendar, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't too big of a deal, but it was a kind of I was on a time crunch and my phone wasn't working, so I reset it, which only created more work for me. um, but yeah, it was a good experience. Other than that, and had I had the new phone at that time, I would have probably just, it was a good time for me to switch at that time. But now that I've configured everything again, I think when I go to the next iPhone, I'm just going to restore my backup because I just got it configured.
Yeah, I mean, you just got it. I mean,
But some of the other things were like when I reconfigured my watch, I got that notice which I normally wouldn't have gotten because when I upgraded my watch OS, I didn't get that notice that my watch doesn't have some sensor. So this is still the older watch. It doesn't have the temperature sensor. Yeah. So it reminded me that, hey, your hardware does not have a temperature sensor. So we're not going to be getting some data, which I wouldn't have known unless I reset it. And it's because I reset it, it got that new, and then it detected that temperature sensor doesn't exist because it's old hardware, and it let me know. So, those kind of little things you kind of miss when you just restore from backup because you're not going to get those warnings and those things like that. But other than that, I'm all set. Everything is fine. I'm now ready to get on my flight Monday and get to the peer meeting.
And for now, you'll be gone. Are you leaving? How early in the morning are you leaving on Monday?
No, on Monday I'm leaving in the afternoon.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll still have our call.
We'll have our call. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think with that we can close it. It was a good experience. It was a good exercise. I just don't want to do it anytime soon.
Awesome.
So everybody have a great day, and let us know what kind of stories you've had. Like, if you have Android, iOS, it doesn't matter what device you have, but how have electronics changed our life, and when they fail, how it impacts our life?
That would be a great topic, because I can tell you, man, the times when if I leave my phone or my phone has died, my God, I feel like it's just become ingrained. It's become a part of, what we do, how we live, my work. I mean, everything, PCSN related is on my phone. So if I need to call somebody, someone needs to call me, I'm right there. And so the times when I tell you, I think I freak out more if I feel around and I don't feel my phone than I do my own wallet. That's how attached to the hip we are now.
Yeah. I mean, and especially like, on my phone, I have my Apple Pay set up on there. So, I mean, I like when I go to a grocery store or something, I don't carry my wallet. I mean, I don't need it. I just use my watch. And actually just the other day, I paid from my watch. I forget which it was a grocery store or something, and I paid with my watch, and the guy at the counter was like, "Oh, I didn't know watch could do that," and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's been doing that for years."
It's been doing that for years. Where has he been?
but yeah, I mean, you don't think about it, but you just double tap and then you put it on the thing, and it clicks and checks out. And the best part, and I know people have heard me say this, it is more secure to use that as opposed to your hard plastic credit card.
It is. Yep. Sure is.
So with that, everybody, have a great day. You can reply back. You can comment. Give us your stories, how you've dealt with electronic issues like this, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.